Hello, YouTube. Let's do another book haul. Yo, what's good, friends, family, and intimate reading associates? Yeah, today's another book haul. I'm going to be talking to you about the books that I purchased over the past couple of months. And then, of course, I'm going to give a massive shout out to all the people that send me books because holy crap, you guys are so generous. But with that being said, let's get into it. I want to talk about the books that people sent me because this community is so generous and you guys have been such a huge support of my channel and my wife's channel. Literally from the bottom of my heart, I thank you every single time I go to the mail and it's like, oh, what the heck? I didn't order books. You guys, you guys. First things first, let's just grab off the top, shall we? Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. I was so happy to receive this in the mail. Holy crap, a classic of classics. My wife adores this novel. And now I have my own copy. This is a Wordsworth paperback edition, which I've been collecting these. They're so affordable, they're so adorable. I mean, look at them Little Women. I've been attracted to reading this story for quite some time, so maybe come the fall time, if you know what I'm saying. Oh my gosh, I'm sweating. You guys make me sweat. Next, The Templar Knight and Birth of the Kingdom, both by Jan Guillou. These books are sequels to a book called The Road to Jerusalem, which is a book that I've been wanting to read for quite some time. We follow a man from Sweden who somehow gets wrapped up into the Crusades, and he finds himself in the Middle East, fighting a war amongst people that he doesn't even belong to. It sounds incredible. My cousin Spencer read this trilogy quite some time ago, and once he finished it, he's like, man, you gotta read this. I know that you'd be into this. The fact that these two just showed up on my doorstep, I could not have been happier. I still actually need to read The Road to Jerusalem, but thanks. Next, Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I actually just read this. Did I say that? Yes, I actually just finished this book. Video coming soon, you guys will see it. This is historical fiction time travel romance. A woman named Clara Randall in 1945 steps into a ring of standing stones and finds herself in 18th century Scotland. Yes, right before the revolution of the Jacobites. It was a book that I was meaning to read for quite some time and just kept putting it off and putting it off. And there were several times that I actually had the book in my hand, thinking I was gonna go check out with it at a bookstore, and it just never happened. So thank you for sending me this because you twisted my arm to get this done. I'm excited for you guys to see my reaction to this book. Next is an entire fetching series. This is War for the Rose Throne by Peter McLean. Starting with Priest of Bones, then we get on to Priest of Lies, then we get on to Priest of Gallows, and then we move on to Priest of Crowns. Thank you so much. Apparently this is like a grimdark fantasy series that kind of has Peaky Blinders feels. As soon as I heard that this feels like Peaky Blinders only with magic, I was like, shut your face, I'm there. I've been curious for something a little bit more turn of the century, 1910s, 1920s video. Hopefully coming sometime. Holy crap. We also got another series, and this series is called Wolf Hall. Starting with Wolf Hall. Yep. Hilary Mantel, then its sequel, Bring Up the Bodies, and then finally, The Mirror and the Light. I've been interested in reading this series for so long because I am a student of history in school. I went to a Christian school when I went to university, studied theology and apologetics and stuff like that, but I also studied history, and this series fascinates me like no other because it deals with the time of the Reformation, specifically Martin Luther, Henry VIII. We're reading about Henry VIII in London, the formation of the Church of England, the killing of Anne Boleyn, all of this, the separation from the Catholic Church, all of the upheaval and the warfare and the just violence that accompanied parts of the Protestant Reformation in Europe. And on top of it all, it is the winner of the Man Booker Prize. So it's got my vote. Super excited. Historical fiction is my jam. These next two books actually came with Outlander, so a very eclectic group of books here. We have Louis L'Amour's The Lonely Men. Don't know what book in the Sackett's series this is. I know the Sackett books are like 17 books long. This is book 12 in the Sackett series. I read the first two novels of this series earlier this year, was blown away by Louis L'Amour's prose. The fact that there's more to this story afterward, couldn't be happier. Could not be happier. The Lonely Men, can't wait to get to it. Stephen King's The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. You guys know I'm a huge Stephen King fan on this channel. My parents have told me about this story like since before I was born, I swear. This is about a girl getting lost in the woods. Only Stephen King could write something so unique and so thought-provoking with just that simple of a circumstance. I've heard nothing but great things about this book. You guys make my day when you send me Stephen King. And in that same vein, the last two books of the books that were sent to me are also Stephen King. Starting with The Talisman, which he co-wrote with Peter Straub. Holy crap, look at that freaking cover. And then, of course, its sequel, Black House, also co-written with Peter Straub. With how big of a Stephen King fan and how big of a Dark Tower fan that I am, I really don't know why I haven't gotten to The Talisman or Black House yet. Super excited though. Oh my gosh, I mean, these are some beautiful freaking editions by Scribner. The day that I pulled these out of my mailbox, I was like, what books did I freaking order? These are massive. It made my entire day. I couldn't stop thinking about these books. I put them on the shelf and just like sat there for hours going, wow. So what does that make the total for all the books that have been sent?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
That's 15 books. My gosh, guys, you don't have to send me books. I'm beyond grateful for this community. I'm beyond grateful for everything that you've done for me and my wife. And the fact that you sent these, it makes my heart full. It makes my heart full of so much joy and happiness and gratitude for all of you. But there's something else that I'm also truly grateful for. And that is the sponsor of today's video, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a subscription-based book service that sends the best new and emerging fiction right to your doorstep. People, these are really good books at really great prices. On average, members save about $5 on every single hardcover that they purchase. They have a specialized team of curators that reads and selects every single book. And each month, selections are picked from the best new and emerging authors. But Ian, how does it work? It's simple. 1, you pick what speaks to you. 2, they send it right to your doorstep. 3, you pretty much repeat the process every month. And 4, well, you read the books. Happy reading. And if you're not feeling that month's selections, you do have the option to skip months, so you don't have to pay for the subscription if you're not feeling it. Well, let me show you what I got. Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. As a horror fan, I don't know why I haven't picked up T. Kingfisher, like ever. I'm gonna dip my toes into her bibliography with this bad boy. The Man No One Believed by Joshua Sharp. Yeah, you read that on the cover, right? The untold story of the Georgia Church murders. Historical fiction crime sounds right up my freaking alley. You really get nothing but quality with Book of the Month every single time. If you're interested, click the link down below in the description or head on over to bookofthemonth.com and use the code FRECKLE to get your first book for $9.99. Thank you so much again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Back to the book haul. Now, let's get into the books that I've purchased since we moved. First book, Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa? Eiji Yoshikawa. Look at this freaking cover. I'm gonna show it to you again. Look at that man. Yes, this is a book about samurai. You know, once I finished Shogun, I was on the hunt for the next ancient Japanese samurai historical fiction story, and everybody recommended Musashi to me. Holy crap. There's also a bit more about the sword master or the life of the swordsman than Shogun was, so I'm freaking stoked. Next, in the same vein, is, Japanese fiction. Haruki Murakami's, I want to say 1Q84. Part of me always wants to just say 1984. I've only read one of Murakami's books, and it really wasn't like the greatest thing that I've ever read. I've wanted to get back into reading him because I've heard so many good things, and this book, it's a love story, it's a mystery, it's fantasy, and it's dystopian all wrapped up in one. We have a female assassin who kills men who sexually assault other women. It sounds fetch and amazing. Oh gosh, man, was I on a roll with just buying 1,000-page books? What the fetch? Next. Sigrid Undstedt's Kristin Lavransdatter. Yeah. That's a mouthful, right? Historical fiction set in Norway. Because I have heritage and family that come from Scandinavia, I've tried to find historical fiction set in Scandinavia, and this was the first one that I've ever really found at a bookstore. Maybe I'm just not looking hard enough. It sounds like Kristen's life is gonna be crazy. She gets married at a young age, and then stuff happens with her husband, and then stuff happens with their family, and then stuff happens in Norway. You know, I know I'm not doing the greatest job of explaining any of these books, but I'm excited about this chunky beast. It also won the Nobel Peace Prize for literature, so next, okay, I have a new obsession. I'm not scared to admit it. Back in April, I read the first book in the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio, Empire of Silence. I was so blown away at how beautiful that book was and how exciting it was that I had to buy the second book, Howling Dark. Funny thing about Howling Dark, I have already read this book. Yes, a video was coming for it. Please don't get freaking out. There is proof that I read this book because it was that amazing. I then took it upon myself to get the rest of the series. Starting with Demon in White, book 3 in this incredible series. Everybody says this is like the best book in the bunch. I just don't believe them, but I'm excited to see. Then Kingdoms of Death, then Ashes of Man, and then finally Disquiet Gods. And that all comes in perfect timing because book 7, the final book in the entire saga, is released in November. So I have to get reading all of these so that I can read that sucker when it comes out. It's like if you took Ridley Scott's Gladiator and mixed it with Frank Herbert's Dune. The series is absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah, this is a chaotic book haul, and I'm not really giving you much to think about. Sorry. Next, this is actually a book that I'm reading at the moment, and that is Speaks the Nightbird by Robert McCammon. I am so happy, gosh, I am so happy to be reading another Robert McCammon book. This is my 4th book by this author. This is historical fiction set in the Carolinas in 1699. It's essentially the story of a witch hunt. It draws on the history of the United States back in Salem, Massachusetts, where the Salem witch trials were held. Reading it already, I feel a little bit of influence from Arthur Miller's The Crucible, and it's like horror, historical fiction. Our main character, Matthew Corbett, he is the clerk of a magistrate who goes from town to town, dispensing justice when it's needed. They're going to this town to investigate a woman who's been accused of witchcraft, but apparently what they find is even worse. I've only read 2 chapters, so there's not much to be said about it, but holy fetch, the prose already has me going. If I like this, well, guess what? There's 9 more books after this. It's a 10-book series, my favorite kind of series. Next, running in the historical fiction vein, we have Hans Fallada's Every Man Dies Alone. This is historical fiction set in World War II. A couple who lives in Berlin decides they're going to take action against their own government. I just want to leave it at that because reading the back, it sounds beautiful. And apparently the author wrote this book in 24 days after the ending of the war. Some of these blurbs, man, one of the most extraordinary and compelling novels ever written about World War II, a triumph for life in the face of darkness and death, a classic as morally powerful as anything I've ever read. Like, it sounds so good. Next is a book that ever since we moved here, I've been off and on the fence of like, do I buy this book? And I finally just pulled the trigger like a month ago. That is Yomiuri's The End of August. I think there's no better way to explain this book than by reading the back. In Korea, Lee Woo-cheol was a running prodigy and a contender for the 1940 Tokyo Olympics, but that would have meant running under the flag of the Japanese occupiers. Nearly a century later, his granddaughter, living in Japan and training to run a marathon herself, summons shamans to help her connect with Lee Woo-cheol. His ghost appears, joined by those of his brother and a young neighbor forced to become a comfort woman to Japanese soldiers during World War II. In order to free their souls, their granddaughter must tell their stories. What she discovers is at the heart of this sweeping, majestic saga of a family that has endured death, love, betrayal, war, political upheaval, and ghosts both vengeful and wistful. And on top of that, the author, skimming through the book, she changes the format on us constantly, and it sounds so exciting. I mean, again, National Book Award winning author, so there's something to be said about the writing and the thought behind this novel. This book is beautiful, it sounds incredible. I have no idea when I'm gonna get to reading it. Next, I've been doing a lot of preparation for Kingtober. What Kingtober is essentially I take the entire month of October on this channel and we just deep dive into Stephen King content. For instance, this is the current atmosphere of my Stephen King Ultimate Storyteller collection. Yes, that's not even all of them that I can possibly have on my shelves, but I've been slowly collecting these ever since my wife gifted me with the originals. As this has grown, I've realized I really do want to try to read everything Stephen King has written, and so what I've done is I've purchased You Like It Darker. This is Stephen King's newest short story collection. I think it has 12 stories in it. He's one of the masters of short fiction. I'm coming up with a big Stephen King short story video, and I knew I couldn't do it without this book. So I got it, and I love this cover. This is the UK version. So yeah, Stephen King. When am I not buying Stephen King, right? And last but not least, well, actually, what am I saying? We still have a few more books after this. Continuing on in the historical fiction vein, we have Joe Harkin's The Pretender. The cover alone got me. Like, I don't know what it is about the feeling of this book, but I'm like, I have to have it. A young boy is being raised on a farm when all of a sudden a really well-dressed man comes to the farm one day and says, guess what? You are the heir to the throne. Hear this. A sweeping historical novel in the vein of Hilary Mantel and Maggie O'Farrell. Do you remember Hilary Mantel? She's the one who wrote Wolf Hall. The Pretender tells the darkly humorous story of Lambert Simnel, who is believed to be the true heir to the throne occupied by Henry VII. Raised in obscurity as a peasant boy to protect his safety, and briefly crowned at the age of 13 as King Edward VI. I'm all about a young boy being hidden for his safety so that he can eventually become king. I hope to get to it soon. Let me know if you've gotten to it in the comments. All right, guys, we are almost done. Next. I saw these at the bookstore like 2 weeks ago and I thought, man, I want to get back into reading Tolkien. I found these editions of some of his other works. We have The Fall of Gondolin, nothing but good things about this. And oh my gosh, look at that cover, holy crap. And then we have The Children of Hurin, holy crap again. And then finally we have Beren and Luthien. This is sort of like Tolkien's love story, you know, between a man and an elf. But I couldn't walk away from these editions. I could not walk away from owning more Tolkien on my shelves. Super excited to do a Lord of the Rings video later this year. Wink, wink. He's the master of fantasy, and his is really the only fantasy that I really like reading at the moment. The next two novels you've actually already seen if you're a regular viewer of this channel, but here we go. Scott Phillips' Cottonwood. This is like a historical fiction crime drama set in Kansas in the 1870s. And then Ronald Malfi's Blackmouth. Coming of age cosmic horror, just really fascinating book. Wow, the rest of these are horror. All right, next. Robert W. Chambers' The King in Yellow. It's actually a collection of stories, but it's been so fascinating to me ever since getting into Stephen King and seeing his interpretation on cosmic horror, and then reading the little bit of Lovecraft that I've read with his cosmic horror, and then also seeing influence of this throughout pop culture. Like, I've seen this influence TV shows and movies that I watch, specifically the first season of True Detective. I'm like one of the biggest fans of that freaking series, specifically that first season. The writer and creator of that show drew influences from the enigmatic figure that is the King in Yellow. It's a collection of 10 short stories. Apparently, it's a story about a story that drives people insane. It all centers on this play known as The King in Yellow, and you get snippets of this play as you go along. It sounds freaking awesome, dude. I'm so intrigued by cosmic horror that I think I need to read this book because this is one of the foundational works. Second to last, Stuart Neville's Blood Like Mine. This is actually a horror, like thriller novel where a serial killer is on the loose. But wouldn't you know it, the serial killer is actually a vampire. Yeah, that's trippy, right? I'm hoping this can really get me back into reading thrillers because at the moment, most thrillers kind of bore me, but with the horror element to it where like the serial killer is actually a monster, I'm all about that. And the pages are quite nasty. Yeah, could have done without that. And last, but certainly not least, folks, Peter Straub's Ghost Story. Of course, I know about Peter Straub. He co-wrote 2 of the books in this haul. In the horror world, he is one of the greats. This particular novel, Stephen King said this is the scariest book that he's ever read. So if my favorite author, who is the king of horror himself, said that this is the scariest book that he's ever read, I'm going to take him up on that challenge. I'm hoping to get to this in October. Horror season, baby. Couldn't be more excited. Could not be more excited. But after everything's said and done, how many books do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 36 books. Oh my gosh. I do love showcasing all of the books that I purchase over the course of a few months. But most of all, I love showcasing all of the books that you all send me because it's just such an honor and such a treat to be able to give you guys shout outs, to be able to showcase you all because you guys are so amazing. That is my book haul. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books. I want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly. No spoilers though. And if you haven't, I would love to hear any video ideas that you have for any of these books, right? All right, but that's it. That's the book haul. Thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Remember, click the link down below in the description or head on over to bookofthemonth.com and use the code FRECKLE to get your first book for only $9.99. This makes me want to read a lot of books now, so I'm going to go and do just that. I will catch you all in the next one.